And what would you like to get out of today's workshop in reading Bhagavad Gita? Is there anything specific you're looking for? Any? Just okay, fine.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, yes.
Yeah. I'm looking. Mainly is the association of the devotees. That's the main.
That's the real key thing.
Yeah.
Everything will happen in the association.
Nothing specific. Just want to read the scriptures more, with more depth, with more meaning.
Oh, good. Like to
Not
hear
just
that.
reading.
Yeah, nice. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Bill, and Bill, yeah, so nothing nothing specific either. So then I just want to learn more about the Bhagavad Gita in general.
Okay. Good. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Micaela. I'm Portuguese, but I live here already for 10 years. Like reading Bhagavad Gita is supposed to be more inspired to get faces this material world. That's what I want.
Okay. Well, you can find that anywhere in the
Yes,
Gita.
yes, that's
Flip a page and you'll find something for that. Suma. Yeah. And is there anything specific you'd like to, with regards to Bhagavad Gita? Okay, good.
Yeah.
Let's go to Yusa.
Lush.
Lush. Yes. And is there anything specific you're looking to gain from reading Bhagavad Gita?
Get closer to Krishna.
Closer to Krishna. Well, that certainly will happen. Certainly will happen.
My name is Vila Betsy, and there is something specific that I'm looking from this workshop. So I try to read Gita every day, like one shloka every day. But sometimes the purpose is so long that the shloka, I forget what was the shloka, and you get, it is so deep. Prabhupada gets into deeper, and as a beginner, I find it so difficult to understand the verses sometimes. And as a mom, I don't have that much time to go back to the verse again. And then I just get lost. So it's just, for me, it's just reading,
Yeah.
just reading the Gita. But it didn't feel like there's going inside.
Something happened.
Yeah, that's something is happening.
Well, just reading is actually a technique in itself.
Okay.
You're just reading it.
Yeah.
You might think you're just reading.
Yeah.
Nothing's happening.
Yeah.
But something is happening.
No, I don't feel it. For me,
The reason you don't feel it is because, and why do we say I don't feel anything? Is because whenever we do something, we want a result. And if I don't see the result, I think, I don't get a result. Where's the feeling? Where's the knowledge? Why isn't anything sticking? It's because we're attached to getting a result. But if we become attached to just hearing, something will happen with the time.
Okay.
We'll come on to that. We'll certainly come on to that. But I'm glad you've been very specific in your request.
Yeah, because I'm started reading, and Srimad Bhagavatam is another step ahead. I don't understand it at all. Like I'm going through the reading, but it doesn't go anywhere. I don't understand it. Like Gita, I still can understand the shloka a bit because
Right.
I've been reading it like twice, like 3 times.
Yeah.
But Srimad Bhagavatam is way ahead for me. So I'm kind of stuck somewhere. It's just reading for me.
What a great place to be stuck.
Yes.
Between the Gita and the Bhagavatam, that's safe.
Yeah, as you were right, I think we are all attached to the results. So if I don't see anything happening, so I feel like I'm not getting it.
Yeah.
I'm not getting into the depth of it or whatever it's written.
But there are different things you can try as you go along, and I'll share a few of those as we go along. But thank you.
My name is Tushar.
Tushar.
And I just want to get a deeper understanding of the Gita.
Okay.
Associated with the devotees.
Good. Thank you.
And after I read the Gita one time, maybe it's more we can learn. You read a couple times more.
Well, that's an interesting point in itself. When I talk to devotees now, I tell them to stop using a particular phrase, and that phrase is, "I've read the Gita." Let's just stop using that phrase. I've read the Gita. Let us just continue reading it. And the reason we need to continue reading it is because we need to get it, and we may not be getting it right now. So we Srimad Bhagavatam, even when devotees read Bhagavad Gita and then go to reading Srimad Bhagavatam, I encourage them read in parallel, because the Bhagavad Gita gives us Krishna's voice directly. This is Krishna speaking directly, and there are parts in the Bhagavatam where Krishna also speaks very directly. But here we learn the truth of who Krishna is. How he is the Supreme Personality, how he has entered, everything comes from him, how he has entered into the creation that he's created, how he's entered into the hearts of every living being within this creation, but how he is also at the same time aloof from all of this. So we learn this tattva or truth of who Krishna is. We then take that understanding to Srimad Bhagavatam, and then through every canto, as we discover every appearance of Krishna in a different form, we know who this Krishna is. And so therefore, if we read Bhagavad Gita, something from Bhagavad Gita every day, as well as progressing through the other scriptures, then we'll continue to stay fresh with who is this Krishna who's now roaring like a lion? Who is this Krishna now who's a dwarf and he only wants 3 steps of land? And then he covers the whole of creation with 2 of them. Wait a minute. A little boy can't do that. But he's not a little boy. He's Krishna. And Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And we can draw so much just from that phrase, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And, the first time we hear the line, Sri Bhagavan Uvacha, Srila Prabhupada gives a whole in-depth understanding of who is this Bhagavan and how it's not a word to use freely with anyone. It's reserved for this Supreme Personality who is speaking this supreme truth on this battlefield, and then who in Srimad Bhagavatam appears in a variety of forms, nurturing a loving relationship with a variety of devotees. So by continually having Bhagavad Gita as a daily companion, and then we attend to the verses of Srimad Bhagavatam, we'll actually become nourished. It'll nurture. The Bhagavatam will be a very nurturing experience of our relationship and our love for Krishna. So we keep Bhagavad Gita alive daily. Sorry, I went off on one based on what you just said. Thank you. Mataji.
My name is Kavita. I accept Krishna as a God and totally surrender to him. And whatever he do in my life, he decided. There I'm thinking.
Okay, so you don't need to read Bhagavad Gita.
Everything.
Good.
Good and bad, he will do. Mm-hmm.
That's the realization of
That's right.
So that's good.
I'm doing the same.
Very good. Sanati Mataji, any particular thing you want to get out of?
Actually, I read Bhagavad Gita over the last 15 years. And if someone asks me, and I don't know if it's just like cheap glue, upstairs. So it's, I would like to have some technique or something, better to remember this knowledge. Yeah.
Well, I mean, that's a technique right there. You could just go to the beginning of the contents page and just read the titles of the chapters.
Yeah, but I have to remember now also.
Keep reading them. Keep reading them. Here's the thing. If we have a regular association with the Gita, regular means every day.
Yeah.
Something will happen. We'll remember. Our words, our vocabulary will change. Our worldview will change. Because Krishna gives us a worldview by which we can try to understand what's going on in our life, in the life of people around us. I mean, if you just take the 5 themes of the Gita, Jiva, which is the self, karma, the activities we perform, prakriti, the nature in which we live, which is defined by the various influences of the modes of nature, kala, the influence of time upon us, without which we can't perform any activity, and it is the most powerful force which ultimately just takes everything away. And then the 5th is Ishvara, the supreme controller. Just by understanding these 5, our perspective on what we're doing in this life changes. You know, and Srila Prabhupada writes in the introduction to the Gita that out of these 5, Jiva is eternal, Prakriti is eternal, Kala is eternal, Ishvara is eternal, Karma is temporary. The actions we perform, it's temporary. But the quality of knowledge that we bring to our activity can change that karma, can change that activity. You can change it from material to spiritual, and it will look exactly the same. Bhagavad Gita, when Krishna is speaking Bhagavad Gita to Arjuna on the battlefield, the one thing that he addresses, if you were to summarize, what does he really address within Arjuna? He addresses his inner attitude. He speaks this before a battle, but Krishna doesn't speak about weapons. He doesn't speak about strategy. He doesn't speak about, phalanx and how to arrange your army. Doesn't speak about anything. He speaks about the inner attitude with which Arjuna at the beginning of the Gita is struggling with the idea of performing his duties, struggling with this sense of dilemma, that there's a conflict that we're going to fight, but I don't want to fight because I'm overwhelmed with these virtues of doing the right thing, non-violence, for example. But at the same time, I'm in conflict with my duty of fighting. So it creates a dilemma. But Krishna, speaking of these 5 themes, creates a framework for us by which we can redefine that inner attitude of ours, and find Krishna in our life as the ultimate purpose in this life. So it has to be a constant. It has to be a constant reminder for us. And the more constant it is, the more it begins to change our paradigm, the way we look at everything, the way we see things in the world. I was speaking recently to a devotee, and they were just trying to understand how to see things in the world. And I said, ultimately, we have to see the world the way Krishna sees the world. But how does Krishna see the world? Well, as Krishna sees the world. But how does Krishna see the world? Well, as soon as Krishna thinks of and sees the material world, he sees it through the lens of the 3 modes of nature, because that's what's at play here. So in our life, we have challenges. In our life, there are relationships. In our life, there are ups and downs. But if we see all of that the way Krishna sees it, we'll see that all of this is the modes of nature at play. But if we're in touch with the Gita every day will be in touch with the way Krishna sees the world every day. It's like putting on armor. When you step out into the world, what armor did you put on to face the world today? If you put on the armor of the Gita, then you're ready to face the world with a completely different world. So from that point of view, the regularity, the frequency of daily reading equips us to daily see not only Krishna, but this framework of five aspects of the absolute truth at play in our life and in the life of everybody else. Hare Krishna.
Sorry for being late.
Better late than never. What is your good name?
Amit.
Amit. I'm Pradyumna to have you here. So I've just been asking everyone. Today we're going to look at reading Bhagavad Gita and what everyone would like to find in today's discussion. So if you have any initial thoughts, you can share them, or you can share something a little later.
If I get something, I will share later.
Okay. Pradyumna Prabhu, you have any?
I'm glad I'm asked this question at the end. So I think, but
Tomorrow I'll ask you first.
I think a couple of things, Prabhu. How to put Bhagavad Gita in practice. We have been addressing that also, this discussion, and also how to see Krishna as a person.
As a person. Okay.
Like,
Well, that's a very specific philosophical point, so we'll see if we come on to that.
okay.
But again, Prabhupada writes in the introduction that if we approach the Gita by even theoretically accepting Krishna as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, we'll get so much from it. And some things you just have to initially just take as a given, and then gradually it becomes a revelation and a realization. So when you're trying to solve a mathematical problem, find the angle of this triangle, which happens to be a right angle triangle. In the question, it'll say, given that this is a right angle triangle, find the value of this angle. So given that it's a right angle, it's 90 degrees. Now, you don't try to figure out or prove the 90 degrees before you figure out the other angle. It's given. It's 90 degrees. Okay, now I can move on and figure out the other angle. So Prabhupada says, even theoretically, if you accept Krishna as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, you'll be able to approach and see Bhagavad Gita completely from a different perspective. Okay, theoretically I accept him. Let's see where this takes me. So it's a given. And then as you study and read and practice also. And of course, our study of the Gita this evening is not about becoming academics. Our study of the Gita is primarily to become convinced of this so that we can do one thing with great purity. You know what that one thing is? Bhakti, yes, but there's one specific aspect of bhakti. No.
Service.
So bhakti, service, and love are part of the same attitude that we bring from our internal devotional self.
Read and hear.
Yes, but by studying, we are building the faith and conviction with which we can glorify Krishna. So our main practice, and Lord Chaitanya says the most important practice, is chanting the holy names of Krishna. But by becoming convinced of who this Krishna is and how he is present, how he is the name, and we understand more about Krishna and who Krishna is, who I am in relationship to Krishna, then when we come to chanting the holy name of the Lord, we'll do that with such deeper conviction. So that's one reason why we want to study deeply the Gita and other scriptures so that we build this conviction for Krishna. And of course, the other reason we do it is because, again, not to be academics, but to be able to share this wisdom with other people and be able to serve them and support them in dealing with their life challenges through the lens of Krishna, through the words and wisdom that Krishna gives. Because Arjuna in the Gita represents you and I. You know, he is the bewildered person stooped in dilemma, person who's emotionally dysfunctional, his emotions are rampant and all over the place. And from time to time, that's going to happen to us, if it hasn't already happened to us. And so therefore, Krishna picks up Arjuna in chapter 1 as somebody who's very tender and very challenged and unsure of himself, but is looking for a way out of this. The good thing is he's turned to Krishna. So he set the example for us. Okay, you can be challenged and you can be displaced and you can be all over the place. That's okay. That happens. But in that situation, turn to Krishna and hear Bhagavad Gita. So that's another reason why we want to hear it every day. So that let's say we take it as a given. Krishna is the supreme personality of Godhead. But as we go through the Gita, that conviction will deepen for us. So let's begin with a verse. There's a word in this verse that's similar to your name, but it means just slightly different. But there's a similarity there. So Nishant means dawn, the end of evening, and Krishna speaks this verse in chapter 5 of Bhagavad Gita, text 16. Jnanena tu tat ajnanam. Jnana means knowledge. Ajnana means
Lack of knowledge.
ignorance. So jnana means knowledge. Ajnana means lack of knowledge. But another word is ignorance. Okay. Jnanena tu tad ajnanam yesham nashitam atmana tesham aditya vaj. Now, Aditya is a name for
Surya.
the sun, Surya. Aditya vaj jnanam. What comes from the sun? Light. So Krishna says, prakashayati. Prakashayati. Prakash means the rays, specifically of the morning sun. Prakashayati tat param. So Krishna says, when, however, one is enlightened with the knowledge by which nescience is destroyed, then this knowledge reveals everything as the sun lights up everything in the daytime. So when we see the sun rising, then the night is dissipating, the night disappears. And it lights up everything gradually. So you begin to see the wonder of the environment around us. So Krishna uses this analogy. Everybody understand this word analogy?
Yeah.
Using one idea to explain another idea. Like life is like a box of chocolates. You never know what you're going to get. Okay, I mean, that's a very overused analogy, but you get the idea. So Krishna is a very expert teacher in the Gita. He uses analogies every now and then. This one is quite powerful. He uses the sun as an analogy because the sun is completely opposite to darkness. Ignorance is completely the opposite of knowledge. So Krishna says, when this sun of knowledge rises in your life, everything that is darkness, everything that is ignorance, it disappears. Now, How often does the sun rise?
Every day.
Every day.
I'm glad we didn't have to think about that.
Depends where you are.
Yeah.
Well, that's a technical explanation.
In the north of Norway, it never sets a
Some of the planets they are more than one sun.
So in the regular sense, there is a sunrise and there is a sunset,
Hmm.
and it happens every day. So if this knowledge is like the sun that dissipates our ignorance, then we should let this sun rise every day in our life, just by opening and turning the pages. And you can turn anywhere, you can read it out randomly, anything, and it will equally act like the sun, offering prakashayanti, offering these rays of knowledge to dissipate ignorance. And Krishna specifically speaks this. There's one line the Prabhupada speaks that really stands out for me. Prabhupada says the teaching of Krishna in Bhagavad Gita is personal instruction for every living being. So this is personal. This is my copy. Krishna speaking of me. I'm not going to let you have it because these are my instructions. And you'll say, no, these are your instructions. And you'll say, no, these are your instructions. And that's great. These are my personal instructions. But the good news is they're the same for everyone. But we personalize them because what is relevant for me right now might not be relevant for you right now. You might be on something else, I might be on something, but we're both drawing from Prakashayanti, these rays of the sun, isn't it? We're both drawing, we're both benefiting rays of the sun rises. It felt differently, it may be experienced in a different way, but there's benefit. So when we think about analogy, Krishna in chapter 4 gives 3 analogies of knowledge. Anybody heard of those?
3 analogies of
Knowledge,
knowing.
transcendental knowledge in chapter 4.
It's like the embryo and the mirror covered by the statue.
No, that's at the end of chapter 3, and that's about lust. We're not going to go there today. We'll stay with transcendental knowledge. So first Krishna says this transcendental knowledge, jnana plaveneva, transcendental knowledge. So first Krishna says this transcendental knowledge, jnana plaveneva, it's like a boat. It's like a boat or a ship. But when you get onto the ship, even if the waters are stormy, if you stay on it, you'll be able to cross over that stormy water. He says, get on the ship and don't get off. And you'll be able to maneuver through stormy waters. But who can get on the boat? Who can get on the boat of this transcendental wisdom?
Anyone.
Anyone?
Whoever reads every day.
How about if you don't read every day? So Krishna, you know how Krishna makes it up? He said, Krishna says, even the greatest of sinners, if they get onto this boat of Jnana Plaveneva, they can cross over this ocean. So sometimes people think, oh, Bhagavad Gita is too early in my life. I'm too much of a bad person. I'm too much of a sinful person. One day when I get better, then I'll touch Bhagavad Gita. And we say, no, keep it close to you. Are you sinful? Okay, keep it even closer. Are you the most sinner? Okay, put it over here then. So sometimes people have this misconception that I'm such a bad person that I can't come anywhere near Krishna. We sing in this beautiful prayer to Lord Chaitanya, Mo sama patita prabhu na poivear. He says, I am the most fallen. So therefore, I'm going to be in the first. I'm going to be first in the queue. Mahaprabhu, I want you to see me first because I'm the worst of all of them. So I'm going to push everyone out the way and come to the beginning of the queue myself so that you'll see me. So a boat, the boat of knowledge, takes us across. Then Krishna says this knowledge, Gyan Agni. It's like fire. This knowledge, by just being in touch with it, by trying to live it, this knowledge will burn too. What happens when you put something in fire? What?
Ashes.
So Krishna says, this knowledge will burn to ashes all your karmic reaction. Now, wouldn't that be a good thing? If we think back, okay, what could I really hide in my life? What do I really want to delete in terms of my history? There's quite a bit. But if we arrive at this Gyanagni, this transcendental wisdom coming from Krishna, and apply that in our life, it'll have the same effect. It'll wipe out this history, this karmic history, to ashes. That's the power of this knowledge. So therefore, why wouldn't we want to engage with it every day? Then the third analogy Krishna gives in chapter 4, Jnanasina. How many of us get a doubt every now and then? Oh, I'm not quite sure about this. We get a doubt. Yes.
Not anything.
About anything. About anything and everything. About the world.
Yeah.
The greatest doubt is about ourselves. Am I really fit for this? Am I really a devotee? Crikey, should I really be doing this? What am I doing here sitting here? Get out of here. Doubt. Krishna says, Jnana Sina. This knowledge is like a weapon. And right at the end, this is the last verse of chapter 4. Krishna says, slash your doubts with the weapon of knowledge.
Sword of knowledge.
Sword of knowledge. Sword of knowledge. Cut these doubts. So when doubts come, where do we go? Usually we just play them around, We play football with them. Or we add to them and, somebody will say something and he just proved my doubts are right. But the only place to go to deal with doubts is to wisdom. And the best wisdom is that emanating from Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita. So whether you need to get on a boat and cross over the turbulence of life, whether you want to burn to ashes all of the karmic reactions that are due us, or whether we want to kind of just deal with doubts on a daily basis, coming to the Gita will do all of that for us. So that's just the backdrop as to why coming to the Gita is such an important part of our day as an aspiring bhakta, as an aspiring devotee of Krishna. Hearing his voice every single day is it's medicine. It's Srila Prabhupada prescribed it. Read Bhagavad Gita every day. So it's medicine, it's illuminating, it's an armor, and it's personal instruction. So how do we do this so that we can, anyone need any paper? Can you help yourself?
Yeah.
Anybody need a pen?
At least the digital one.
Yeah, you may want to just write it on your phone. That's perfectly fine. I can have it.
Can I see the comments on?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, because actually, I think that the more accessible the knowledge is to us, we don't take the opportunity. It's like if something is rare, you want it more. I was speaking to Mahatma Prabhu about this, and he said, like back in the days when Prabhupada was there, and a book came, everyone in the temple would gather around and like, wow, let's read this book, Prabhupada came, there's a new book, or there was a letter, and everyone was like gathering around. And he said, like, and now we have all the lectures, all the class, everything, and we're not taking advantage. And it feels a little bit like that. It's like everyone has the all Prabhupada's books here.
We're walking with them.
All the time.
We're walking with them every single day.
Yeah.
We just have
Oh, I have to open the right app.
we have to open the right app. Yeah. Or delete the wrong ones. So we're going to get on to doing some worksheets as well. But before that, let's just begin with the first technique for reading is just reading. Doesn't matter where you read. Okay? Doesn't matter where you read. You just read. O Arjuna, I give heat and I withhold and send forth the rain. I am immortality. I am also death personified. Both spirit and matter are in me. That's just a random verse. Does that say anything to us?
That he's everything.
Huh?
That he's everything.
That is everything. I give heat. That's why I'm sitting here.
Maybe not that kind of heat. Maybe
Also that kind of heat.
Well, why not that
Oh,
kind
yeah,
of heat?
yeah,
Here's
yeah.
this kind of heat. Ultimately, this kind of heat comes from the sun.
Yeah, yeah.
And Krishna says, I am the light of the sun.
Yeah.
So as soon as I read that, and this is just a random verse we found,
Yeah.
I become grateful for this heat. And I connect this heat with Krishna. So just me baking my back here, I can become Krishna conscious. Just by this, what was it? I give heat. 3 words. I give heat. Everyone, I give heat. Now you're going to remember this example forever. This allows me to be grateful to Krishna. And it allowed me to become conscious that actually it's getting very hot.
Do you want a pillow?
No, I quite like it actually. Then he says, I withhold and send forth the rain. I am immortality. And I am also death personified. Both spirit and matter are in me. So just that one verse, which we just found randomly, I mean, it's always there, chapter 9, text 19. Doesn't that just tell us so much about Krishna? And that's just one verse that is speaking about him. I mean, if you look at chapter 7, there's a series of verses where we learn so much about the nature of Krishna, about his all-pervading presence in our life. So that's one technique. Just pick a random verse. Read. So, first technique, just read. Okay? You're not studying, you're not going deep, you're not trying to analyze everything. You're just saying, you're just reading. Now, you can add a little bit to that randomness. And the second technique is prayerful reading.
Prayerful?
Prayerful. Now, what do I mean by that?
Yeah.
So this was just random.
Yeah.
But just by this random verse, what did it leave me with? It left me with appreciation for Krishna. Now, I can turn that appreciation for Krishna into a prayer, into gratitude, into appreciation. Thank you for the heat that you provide. Thank you for sending forth the rain. And just thank you for that.
It's a gratitude.
You become grateful. So another way, now, of course, these 2 techniques work better with a physical book than
Yes.
they do with an app. You wouldn't be able to just find me a random verse on the app. You have to be very deliberate and specific. But another way is being prayerful to Krishna. Everybody repeat after me. I have a challenge.
I have a challenge.
Now repeat this after me. Oh Krishna, I have a challenge.
Oh Krishna, I have a challenge.
What's the difference?
We are praying to push to help us resolve the challenge.
How about the first one?
And it was not meant for Krishna. We just
The center.
yeah.
I'm the center.
Right. I have a challenge. It's about me. I have a challenge. Sometimes I can sit there and think, oh gosh, I have a challenge today. How am I going to resolve this? And I sit there and I'm trying to resolve it. I'll write an affirmation or, I no longer have challenges in my life, and pretend that everything's going to be, or think about the state I want to really be in or achieve. About the state I want to really be in or achieve. But if I say, oh, Krishna, I have a challenge, I've actually entered a space of addressing Krishna. That in itself becomes a prayer. Now, if you analyze chapter 1, how many times does Arjuna address Krishna in a very specific way? 16 times. 16 times. Using 9 names of Krishna. Madhava, Janardhan, Madhusudana, Rishikesha, Achyuta. Now, does Arjuna use these names just like as a fashion or randomly? Or let me show you how many names I know about you, Krishna. Here's 9 to begin with. Are they random? No. They're very deliberate and very specific. In fact, the first time we see Krishna in chapter 1, Madhavas, Pandavas, Jaiva. He's referred to as Madhava. And Madhava means the husband of the goddess of fortune. So the first time you see Krishna in Bhagavad Gita in chapter 1, he's referred to as Madhava, the one who brings fortune to his devotees on the battlefield of Kurukshetra. So just by that darshan of Krishna in chapter 1, text 14, we know that the outcome of this is one of fortune for Arjuna, because that's who Arjuna picked. Arjuna picked Krishna, who's not fighting, but who is a humble servant as the chariot. Rishikesh means master of the senses. So in essence, Arjuna's senses, his emotions, his thoughts are all over the place. But when he addresses a Rishikesh, you please control my senses and guide them for your mission. A beautiful one is Achyuta, the infallible, unfailing Lord. Unfailing. And then he says, "Oh Lord, oh infallible one," which means you're unfailing in your love for me. Take my chariot and let me see who's here. So it's very interesting because Krishna guides everybody. But here Arjuna is guiding Krishna, saying, okay, now you take my chariot and put it over there. And Krishna obliges. So when we use specific names of Krishna to address him, it becomes a connection. So here's another technique. Think about what I'm going through right now. Think about what I could do with some help with. And say that as a prayer to Krishna. And then, roughly we know, that there's 18 chapters and, there's an order here, isn't there? So we know if I go to the back, then I'm going to get this. And if I come to, but still, if we offer a prayer to Krishna, and then Krishna, I'm going to open the book. This is what I'm going through right now. This is what I could do with some insight and revelation and some help with. Please share something with me. Anybody want to try?
Can you please repeat that?
So first of all, I think about what am I going through right now? What do I need? Some clarification, some help, some support, some guidance, a question even that I have. And I offer that to Krishna. Please give me some direction. And then I open the book and see where I come to. Sorry?
Yeah, to find out.
You know what I found? You won't believe what I found. It's so beautiful what I found.
I haven't one challenge.
No. You have to do this yourself. I'm going to give you the Gita in a moment, okay?
Yeah.
I'm just showing you what I opened up. Okay?
When you close first.
Let me read you what I found and I'll close it and give it to you.
Okay.
When Arjuna thus saw Krishna in his original form, he said, "O Janardhan, seeing this human-like form so very beautiful, I am now composed in mind and I am restored to my original nature." Isn't that beautiful?
Yeah.
This verse, the reason why I like this verse a lot, this is in chapter 11 after Arjuna sees the universal form, and then Arjuna says, "No, I don't want to see this anymore. Show me your original form." And then Krishna stands there in four arms and then gradually changes as the original Krishna. And then when Arjuna sees that original form of Krishna, he says two things. I am now composed in my mind and I'm restored to my original nature. So this is the result of darshan. So when we come here every week and we see Jagannath, my dear Jagannath, please allow me to be composed in my mind and regain my original nature just by beholding your beautiful form. It becomes a practice. And you remember something. Right, does anybody want to have a go? Yeah? So, you take your time. This is another one you can't do with an app.
Or Kindle.
Or anything electronic, any device. No, you read it.
Oh,
First, okay, read the verse.
There are so many. There are two words there.
Yeah, pick one.
19 and 20.
Just whichever one your eyes fell on first. Or you can read both. Read 19 and 20.
19 and 20 both. Those who are envious and misvicious, who are the lowest among the men, I separately cast into the ocean of the material existence into the various demonic species of the life.
Then 20.
Yeah. Attaining repeated birth amongst the species of the demonic life, O son of Kunti, such person can never approach me. Gradually, they sink down to the most abdominal type of existence.
What was the challenge that you had before you? What was your prayer to Krishna?
That I'm thinking, I know he's God. I accept him as I am totally surrender also. But the situation in there are so many challenges at the home. We can't go from our duties. I want to go to him. So it is not easy for me because I have children, I have family, I have job. So I can't go from these things. So that's why I'm praying and meditated downstairs in my house. So 1 hour, 2 hour, sometime it will be take 5 minutes. So sometime I sit 1 hour, 2 hour without.
Read text 24.
Okay, one should therefore understand what is the duty, what is not duty by the regulation of the scriptures. Knowing such rules and regulations, one should act so that he may gradually be elevated.
There's your answer.
Yes.
You have to read that verse every single day when you're thinking, I have challenges in my house. I don't know what to do about my duty. Krishna, what? Read it again.
Okay, one should therefore understand what is the duty and
So, what is your duty at home? Are you a mother? You're a wife? There's nothing wrong with that. You have to do that.
Yes.
Then, what does Krishna say?
By the regulation of the scriptures, knowing such rules and regulations, one should act so that he may be gradually be elevated.
And what do you say you're surrendered?
Yeah.
You want to be more elevated?
Mm.
So what's Krishna asking you to do? Krishna's not asking you to give up being a mother. He's not asking you to give up being a wife. He's not asking you to give up your house. He's saying the situation that you have is perfect if you follow the scripture, do your bhakti, serve as a mother and a wife.
And then I get that opportunity to finish these things that I am doing at my home, everything, and only for Krishna.
But Krishna doesn't say that.
Well, then
Krishna doesn't
how-
want. Actually, Krishna doesn't say that at all.
Like Krishna didn't see, I know, but I want.
You want to insert another verse in there.
Then I
Here's the
feel
thing.
my duty.
When we learn to see everything in relationship with Krishna, then that's Krishna consciousness. Krishna sambandhe.
Yeah.
Nirbandhe Krishna sambandhe yukta vairagya. What you're looking for is vairagya.
Yeah.
I just want to give up everything.
No, I'm not want to give up. I can't explain. It's not easy to explain. That way.
You only want Krishna.
Yeah. That I'm doing my work. It's okay. But when they become a bit older, everyone, my children or everything, then they give me permission to do these things.
But how long do you have to wait?
That's why I'm thinking how long when they give me that.
That's okay. You can have that feeling that I have to wait. But until then, the situation that Krishna has given me is perfect for me to become elevated. If I keep this internal feeling for Krishna and do my duty, it's perfect.
That's why I'm doing the same that you are saying.
But you don't have to ask the question, Krishna, when will I give up all of this and just be with you? Because you're with Krishna now in your duty. And when that duty finishes, you're still with Krishna. It's not that just because you're doing your duty, you're not with Krishna. Anyway, we could go on talking about that very specific point. But my point is, you started off with a verse which wasn't relevant, but just behind that verse was something of relevance.
Sometimes we have to just keep on reading.
Yes, Krishna, why have you brought me to this place? There's something else. And you'll come to that.
I'm waiting mocha, that time. Then that time come.
That time is here right now for you to be perfect in Krishna consciousness.
But you also said through scriptures, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. So it means reading.
It means hearing Krishna every day. Krishna, what's the adventure for my day today?
Lectures.
I'm reading, I'm hearing lecture and leelas of Krishna.
Very good.
Every day. Can't without that.
Good. You see how just finding one verse opens up a whole conversation. Opens up a whole conversation. Can I get the book back?
No.
Thank you. So that's another method. Should we get a little more serious?
Yes.
So it's not serious?
No, just
That's a warm up. In the first verse of chapter 1, in the first purport of chapter 1, Dharma Kshetra Kurukshetra, that's the first verse. The first few lines of first purport are very revealing. Prabhupada writes, Bhagavad Gita is the widely read theistic science summarized in the Gita Mahatmya. There it says that one should read Bhagavad Gita very scrutinizingly, with the help of a person who is a devotee of Krishna, and try to understand it without personally motivated interpretations. So we've all read Bhagavad Gita, right? We've all started. Did you all start with chapter 1, verse 1?
Yes.
Introduction.
You started with introduction. Then did you read chapter 1, verse 1?
It was so difficult. The first time I got Bhagavad Gita and I started reading it, I gave it up and it took years before I opened it again.
Who remembers reading the word scrutinizingly? We don't. What does scrutinizingly mean?
Questioning.
First of all, it means thinking. Let me think about this. What are you saying? That there's a body and there's me? Crikey, that's revolutionary. Scrutinizingly means it begins with thinking. Let me just pause and think. Your question of, by the time I got to the end of the purport, I've lost what that verse was all about.
Yeah.
But that's okay. Here's the thing. Who says you have to read the whole thing in one go? Read a sentence, pause, think about it. Read a sentence, and then read the verse again. Read the second sentence. And if you're still kind of like, okay, how does that? Go back and read the verse. Take it slow.
It's not a marathon.
It's not a race. It can be a marathon, but it doesn't have to be a race. There's no Prabhupada, here's the gem. Prabhupada said, even if you understand one word of the Gita, it's perfection. One word. So if I'm reading something, Krishna, what does this mean? And then here Krishna says, do it with another person, another devotee. Hey, did you read the same line? What did you understand by that? Because here's what I understood by this. Oh, I didn't read that word that way. That's what that word means. Sometimes I sit with a dictionary. One time, if you look at the last verse of chapter 6, Yoginam api sarvesham mad gata antaratman. Prabhupada says, one who abides in me. Now, I read that word, I've read that so many times over so many years. But last year, when I read that word, I'm thinking, wait a minute, abide. What's that? What does abide mean? So I went to the dictionary or Google. And some beautiful explanations of abide came up from Christianity. Some beautiful verses, beautiful prayers, abide in me. And I thought, and I wrote down a few things. Complete dependency on Krishna. Everything is resting on him. I want to, everything I have is because of him. So that's the last verse of chapter 6. And I stopped and I did all this research on abide, to depend, to fully take shelter, to fully take refuge, and so on. Then I started chapter 7 after doing that research. And guess what, chapter 7, what does Krishna say at the beginning of chapter 7? The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, now hear, O son of Pritha, how by practicing yoga in full consciousness of me, with mind attached to me, you can know me in full, free from doubt. And my first feeling was, that's a definition of abide. Full consciousness in Krishna, mind attached to him, fully practicing this devotion. And it's the next verse. And I went off and researched the whole thing and came back to it. And the answer was at the beginning of chapter 7. So taking it slow. If you find a word, spend time with it. What does it really mean? What does it mean in the context of Krishna? What does it mean in the context of devotion, devotional service? So scrutinizingly means going a little deeper, going a little slower with it. And it's fine to be slow. Because if you're looking for a feeling, if you slow it down, you'll begin to feel the feeling. Right now, we might just go through, I have to read a verse a day. Time's going, you know. But if you turn that into, I have to read a verse a day and try to understand at least one thing, that's progress. It is better to think about making progress than thinking about when's that perfection going to happen? When's that day? When will that time come? We're waiting for this moment of perfection. But we forget to celebrate the progress we can make, even if it's a word at a time or a line at a time. Just slow down the whole experience. One time I was speaking to a devotee on the phone, a younger devotee, and he called me to ask me some questions. But as a pleasantry, he said to me, "Oh, you've been around for quite a long time. What are you reading nowadays? What are you reading nowadays? What are your realizations? What's the depth of your Krishna consciousness?" And I thought, oh, here we go, one of those kind of questions, looking for something deep and esoteric. And I said to him, I've just studied the 9 names of Krishna in chapter 1 of Bhagavad Gita, and it leaves me so refreshed. Being around for a long time or advancement doesn't mean we advance beyond the text of these books. These books continue. Prabhupada says, if you read the whole Bhagavad Gita once, read it the second time you will find things in there that you did not see the first time round. The third time, you will find something in there that you did not see the second time round. The 20th time, you'll find things in there that you did not see the 19th time round. And it keeps going. Keeps going and going and going. Now, I'm going to give you a technique for scrutinizing, going a little deeper than that. And I have a worksheet for it. Everybody ready to do a little work? Do you want to give those out that way and just give those out this way? Or could I just get a copy for myself? Yeah, thank you. Yeah. Lovely. So I take no credit for this tool. This tool is called the 5 R's of reading. And you will need a pen for this. Everybody got a pen?
I need one.
Where did the pens go?
Only which that's okay.
I had quite a few pens.
Yeah, more.
Oh. And like I said, I take no credit for this tool of the 5 R's of reading, other than sharing it with you. So the 5 R's of reading comes from my Christian friends, because they also study the Bible very deeply and very scrutinizingly. And there are 5 ways of reading that allows us to go a little deeper. The first R is just read. The second R is to rewrite. Just copy the verse that you're reading. The third R, restate it in your own words. The fourth R, relate. How can you relate to this? And for that, you read Srila Prabhupada's purport to see what further understanding can I have. And the last R, the fifth one, respond. What will I do? What's the one thing I can do differently from reading this verse?
Think of doing that with whole Bhagavad Gita.
That'd be ecstatic. So I've chosen a verse for everyone. 9:22. By the way, you've got this is on both sides. One side you see is blank, and that's just for you to find your own verse and try it out later on. But the verse that we're going to do together is 9:22. And this is Krishna speaking. He says, "But those who always worship me with exclusive devotion, meditating on my transcendental form, to them I carry what they lack and I preserve what they have." What a beautiful word. Krishna's so kind. He's sharing his kindness and love here. So, what I'd like you to do, just read that verse a couple of times to yourself, then copy out the verse. Just copy out the verse as it is. Should we give him a piece of paper?
I think he has another paper from him, but he's not saving it.
Oh. So read the verse a couple of times, then just write the verse out, copy it out. And there's just something quite powerful about writing. There's something quite powerful of just copying this. We may have done this at school when you're revising for a test. Let me just copy out this formula. Let me just copy out this passage that I'm learning. As we write it and copy it, we're becoming familiar with the order of the words. We're becoming familiar with the meaning of the words that are being used. And writing it out helps us learn it. But those who always worship me with exclusive devotion, meditating on my transcendental form, to them I carry what they lack and I preserve what they have.
Should we read the verse also?
Yeah, read the verse. Rewrite the verse. Just copy the verse out. Have you done that?
Yes.
Yeah.
Then write the verse in your own words. Have you done that?
Yeah.
Write the verse in your own words.
Is it a long purport?
It's not that long. Those who always worship me with exclusive devotion, meditating on my transcendental form, to them I carry what they lack, and I preserve what they have. Who's done the write your own version of it? Okay, let's hear some of those.
Yeah. So my rewrote, I rewrote so that if I always remember Krishna, Krishna will always look after me.
I like the way you personalized it. If I.
Yeah.
I like that. That's good. Chan?
Krishna takes care of all the needs of devotees who worship, remember him always, like a mother takes care of child.
You introduced an analogy. Very good. Nice. Bill?
No,
You're still writing.
When we pray to Krishna with bhakti, Krishna will carry us where we are in the spiritual life, and will be better in the developing next.
Yeah. Good. Good. Nice.
I read on that if we worship him every day with devotion, so he's always with us. Either we have pain or problems, he takes us out from these all the negative things for us.
Very good. Nice.
Krishna helps the devotee to advance in Krishna consciousness, and then protects him from not falling down when he's Krishna conscious. And then I wrote, I give my devotee what he lacks and protect what he has.
Okay. The point about protection is quite a powerful one. Krishna is the protector of his devotees.
I wrote devotees with undiluted attention to transcendental form of the Lord. Example is form, Vigrah, name, Katha, Prasadam, Radharani, different transcendental extensions are personally looked after by Krishna, both materially and spiritually, to bring them closer.
Lovely. You've included the whole spiritual experience. Nice. Prabhu, how about for yourself?
Yeah, I fully take care of my devotees who meditate on me and worship me. Yes.
Krishna takes care of everyone.
Yeah.
Finish, Bill?
Krishna will provide everything we really need when you surrender unto him.
Right. Very good.
Those who worship me sincerely, I give them what they need, and I will keep what I hope for them.
Okay. Very good.
I wrote something too. Then he's trying to tear apart. So Krishna says, those who are devoted to my transcendental form I'll fill the qualities that they are born with, and I'll provide the qualities that they are not born with. I'll fill the gaps or the qualities that they don't have or lack in this lifetime. So yeah, I'll be protector of my abilities.
That's the key theme. Prabhu, how about for you? Okay, no worries. If you want to move on to the relate, the fourth R, and for that we read the purport. Read what Srila Prabhupada writes. And the purport is quite short. What does that mean for us? I'll read it while you're all thinking about it. One who is unable to live for a moment without Krishna consciousness cannot but think of Krishna 24 hours a day, being engaged in devotional service by hearing, chanting, remembering, offering prayers, worshipping, serving the lotus feet of the Lord, rendering other services, cultivating friendship, and surrendering fully to the Lord. Such activities are all auspicious, full of spiritual potencies, which make the devotee perfect in self-realization, so that his only desire is to achieve the association of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. This is your purport, isn't it? This is all about your desire.
Yeah.
Such a devotee undoubtedly approaches the Lord without difficulty. This is called yoga. By the mercy of the Lord, such a devotee never comes back to this material condition of life. Shema refers to the merciful protection of the Lord. The Lord helps the devotee to achieve Krishna consciousness by yoga. And when he becomes fully Krishna conscious, the Lord protects him from falling down to a miserable condition of life. So what do we get from this? We get the impetus and energy to surrender.
And loves them too, every day.
Yeah. One thing we clearly get is reassurance.
No doubt.
Yes.
Reassurance. Somebody can say to me, oh, if you serve Krishna, then Krishna's going to look after you. I said, yeah, really? But Krishna himself is telling me now that he's going to look after me. I'm not going to be a loser by surrendering to him. In fact, I'll be a gainer because Krishna's going to carry any limitations I have. He's going to preserve what I've done so far. Krishna already told us in chapter 2 that there's no loss or diminished. Whatever we do on this path is preserved. If this life we are successful 20%, next life we continue from 21. We don't lose the day. But materially, if I have $20 million, 20 million pounds, next life, what's the guarantee that I'm going to start with 20? There's no guarantee of that.
No.
But if I do 20% Krishna consciousness, next life I continue with 21%. If I do 70% Krishna consciousness, next life 71. And I keep pushing it until one day I'm on 99%. And then I just got to take birth for 1%. So when somebody renders devotional service to Krishna, Krishna can not forget that.
At the end of he knows that he's out. Those were devotees.
We hear of this in Srimad Bhagavatam right at the beginning. Shrinvatam Swakatha Krishna Punya Shravana Kirtana. For one who develops an urge to hear about Krishna, what does Krishna do for that? Hridayantosya Bhadrani. Krishna is in our heart. As soon as we say, Krishna, I want to learn about you, I want to hear about you, I want to become your devotee, he can hear that.
He can hear everything.
He can hear that. He can feel this urge that we have for him. So what does he do? Hridayantasya vadrani vidunnoti surit satam. I cleanse the heart from within. You know, he rolls his sleeves up and he gets the mop and the bucket out and he cleans our heart. He's actively involved in removing our ignorance. In chapter 10, text 11, Krishna says, for one who's serving me, I give the intelligence. Well, in 10, he says, I give the intelligence. And then he says, if there's any ignorance that's left, I, from within, as the shining lamp of knowledge, remove that ignorance. One thing about Krishna, he wants to be active in the life of his devotees. He wants to be involved. We're just not involving him. But if we say, Krishna, you want to be involved in this? Come on. Please, I invite you to be involved in my life because I need it. Because there's lots to be involved in. In fact, why don't you just take the whole thing? I offer it up to you as a sacrifice. This is how personal Krishna wants to get. Shuryadam Sarva Bhutan. He's in the heart of every living being as Shurid, a friend. Rid means heart. Shurid means he's very close. How close? How close is Krishna to us in the heart?
Inside. Oh. He doesn't get closer.
How close?
It's inside.
Inside what?
The heart.
Intimate closeness.
Intimate closeness. Touching.
Yeah, it's inside. Yeah.
It's not that we're over here and Krishna's over here and, we're trying to, hey, come closer. Nah, I'm going to stay over here. Whether we're close devotionally or we're not close devotionally, we're close in the relationship. Krishna doesn't, we can go off and do whatever we do in the world, but Krishna doesn't depart from his position of being Surid, an intimate friend. Doesn't depart. Doesn't leave. He doesn't say, oh, look, he's taken birth as an ant. I'm not going to go with him for that one. I'll wait until he becomes a human and then I'll join him again. Krishna doesn't do that.
Or say because you look like that, or because you're that.
You look like that. Oh, he's taken birth. Oh, he doesn't have any money in this life. Forget it. I'm not going there. Krishna doesn't do that. He's the only friend that won't do that. Should it? It's intimate.
No, Prabhuji, this verse start with but and also has always. And we are I'm the fallen soul, cannot remember always, and I feel I get scared.
Krishna uses the word always quite a few times. In chapter 8, always remember me and fight.
Yes.
At the end of chapter 9, always remember me. We might say, well, I can't always remember.
I want to, but how? How to do that?
The thing is, want to and wanting to know how to is the response Krishna wants to get from you.
Okay.
Because if you want to, you'll figure out how to. And then as you figure out how to, eventually you're always thinking of it. So if you say at one point in your day, Krishna, I really want to think of you, but I'm not thinking of you right now. Guess what you've just done? I'm thinking of Krishna.
I get it. Yeah. It's a good. But it's a guilt also that after 2-3 hours you were doing something and then say.
So you can set an alert.
Yeah.
Every 5 minutes.
Oh.
Set an alert. Or set up prompts.
Yeah.
One time we just moved recently, but in our old house, I had this sequence of I get up, get ready, leave my room. And I had this sequence of every turn I had to see a particular picture or verse before going downstairs. So every turn of the house, I would see something, and it became a routine. I leave my room, I'm going to see, and then by the time I reach downstairs, I see a picture of Prabhupada and Jayadvaita Swami together, and then I enter, and I just have I haven't quite been able to do that in the new place we've moved to. But in the old place, it just became a routine. At the staircase, there's a picture of Kornitai that somebody gave me from Budapest. So I say a prayer there. Then as I turn to walk down the stairs, I have something on top there. Then it was just a very interesting prompt. So we have to organize life in a way that prompts us to have that connection. Yes, Madhu.
So we look at our phone, every 2 minutes or something? So like my screensaver, like when I open the phone, I used to have Krishna there, but Kamala put her picture there. But it's like my Guru Maharaj, so I think about Krishna.
Yeah.
So it's like those things, or I used to have a cover even with my Guru on the back. It's like, because he makes me think more of Krishna. But it's like, I used to work as a teacher for kids for 18 years. And it was very difficult to remember Krishna at work. It was so difficult. That's I could go a whole day without thinking about it. But now I work in a refugee center with Arabs. And every time they come into the classroom, it's Assalamu alaikum. I'm like, "Wa alaikum assalam." They go to pray. And then I'm just like, I think about Krishna so much. It's made that atmosphere, it's made me so Krishna conscious, like all the time. And their ringtone is like, the prayer tones. And then in the break, they'll go and they'll look at different things, from Mecca. And it's just like, I'm also, like, okay, then it's time for Gayatri. My colleague is praying, and I'll do the same. So it's like it's like Krishna just gave me that gift. Maybe he saw how hopeless it was in the other job, So it's like, okay, I'll go board with something. But yeah, so it's like how, like the screensaver at your computer at work, it can be a picture of Radha and Krishna.
Yeah. Even before you go to work, if you just read a verse, say, right, Krishna, what's the adventure for today? And then take that verse with you, have it on your desk or have it somewhere. And throughout the day, if you're referring to the same verse, it becomes a verse for the day. And make a note of it. Today, the verse was 922. And by the end of the week, you've got 5 verses that you've actually spent 5 whole days thinking about. That's dynamic. The Gita Mahatmya says, and listen to this. There's a story of a benefit reading each chapter of the Gita. And it says, for anyone who reads even just 5 verses of chapter 18 can attain the position of Indra. Now, we don't want that. But that's the power of just reading 5 verses. So, 5 days, you focused on one verse. By the end of those 5 days, you've actually qualified yourself to go and become Indra, the king of heaven. Now, you don't want that, so you'll do another 5 days and go for something else. But the benefits of reading the Gita are so liberal. When you read the Gita, they're so liberal. But here's the ultimate benefit, and I'll pause there and then we can take some questions if you like. The ultimate benefit is this. This is where we leave Arjuna in chapter 1. Sanjaya said, Arjuna, having thus spoken on the battlefield, cast aside his bow and arrows and sat down on the chariot, his mind overwhelmed with grief. Okay? That's Arjuna in chapter 1. Arjuna in chapter 18, text 73, Arjuna said, "My dear Krishna, O infallible one, my illusion is now gone. I have regained my memory by your mercy. I am now firm and free from doubt, and I'm prepared to act according to your instruction." The same Arjuna, different attitude.
Like 45 minutes later.
The same Arjuna transformed. The same Arjuna who didn't want to fight, but ready to do it, not just for himself anymore, but for Krishna. The greatest gift is this transformation that Arjuna experiences. We can experience it in this life. We just got to stick with it. I'm going to pause here. I mean, I could go on and we could.
The offering hasn't been done yet. Do you want to check if they're ready for offering, and then we have 15 minutes?
Yeah, whatever questions anyone has.
We didn't do the relate.
Oh, we didn't do the relate.
Right.
Oh, the respond and the relate. Yes. Do you want to kind of do that?
Yes.
So relating is from the purport. What kind of things did you do?
So my thoughts about it was like the 9 processes of bhakti, and one after those he says cultivating friendships. This is one of my favorite things to do. I love friends. So yeah, and then another thing is that it's so easy to come to Krishna. It's just those 9 things, and cultivating friendship and surrendering. So it's like it's so easy you might even just miss it.
Mhm.
Or maybe think that it's so easy you may not be worth it. It's like the mind goes like it's so easy.
Yeah.
And yeah, and I also noted that this kshema, merciful protection, and that he will make sure we never have to come back and we can always be with him. And yes.
Good. Thank
I
you.
also have response.
We'll come on to the respond. We'll end with the respond from everyone. Does anyone else have any notes on the relate? So relate is just kind of thinking about this. But if we go back to this verse that we've been looking at then, respond is the last R. And this is where if you leave your reading at this point, what's one thing I can do differently from this verse? Did everyone think of something?
Okay. Not written anything out.
Yeah.
Focus chanting. Focus chanting. Focus chanting.
Focus chanting. I had one devotee actually tell me that after doing a similar study like this, they said, I'm going to read this verse every day before I start my chanting. Just to get this idea of focus. Krishna's with me. He's going to carry me. He's going to preserve what I have. So let me just read this verse for a few days before I start my chanting, just to feel this presence of Krishna. Manager, what was your response?
Actually, I did this little sankalpa wrought for myself.
Yes.
2025. Because one devotee sent me a message, and she said that she wants to keep in contact with those relationships that are meaningful to her. And I was so honored that she thought that my friendship was meaningful to her. And then I thought, okay, so which friendships are meaningful to me? And I made a list. And those friendships, I want to actually scientifically, it only takes 8 minutes, a conversation with someone, 8 minutes, and they won't feel lonely. So we have so many around us that we are so spread out, and people may feel lonely. So I feel like I want to make this schedule because it's easy to forget to contact people. It's because life just happens, and you can go a whole week without speaking to anyone else but my colleagues. So my response is what I'm thinking, that I will look after my friendships better. That those meaningful relationships, that I will cultivate them deeper. So
That's lovely. And I'm sure people will benefit from that.
that's fine.
Did anyone else have a respond? One thing we can do differently from the verse. But again, it's something we can come back to. I can read the verse again. I can read it over the day. What's the one thing I could just one small thing I could do differently? Even if it's like, well, let me read this verse every day for the next few days before I do my chanting and become familiar with that. Did you have something, Bill?
Be less anxious.
That's nice. Be less anxious.
Yeah, because it's giving assurance.
Yes.
There's assurance, there's shelter.
It's one of the few verses actually where Krishna is giving so that assurance
Yeah.
to his devotees. It's an important verse.
Yeah.
It's like an afterlife insurance.
Yeah.
You know? Feels like that. You know, he's saying like, don't worry.
Yeah. Good. Thank you all very much. Any other any questions on anything we've covered or other aspects of?
We have some time for
Reading
Huh?
Bhagavad
We
Gita.
have time, yeah, and there will be finished cooking in 10 minutes, then we will offer 10 minutes ish. So
Sure.
Yeah. Actually, there are quite a few. You mentioned that there are three analogies in Gita, like boat, fire, and salt. What about sun? Because that was the verse. So that
was
was
the
also
verse.
one of the analogies.
Yes. So I said there were 3 Krishna gives in chapter 4 alone.
Oh, okay.
Those were in chapter 4.
Okay.
So then there's the one that I read in chapter 5.
Yeah.
And then in chapter 10, Krishna gives the analogy of the lamp.
Yeah.
Knowledge is like that. He is that knowledge of lamp. Jnana Deepena.
And
So there's 5.
okay. So this is, one is deep, both sword, fire, sun, and deep.
Yeah.
And actually, this is also a little bit interesting that we talked about when there is a boat, then it takes you once you are so anybody can be on the boat. That was the message. And when I see it in context with 922, then but only those who remembers can be on the boat, or that's how it is. So not everyone, but only those who remembers. Not
No.
but you mentioned that all the sinners or the worst sinner can also be, but he has to remember.
He said anyone can get on the boat. But what happens to someone on the boat of transcendental knowledge? What happens to them?
So they will go cross. They
So
will-
therefore, on the boat, they'll experience Gyan Agni. Their karmic reaction will be to ashes. On the boat, they can also experience Gyanasina, the sword.
Yeah.
They can also experience Jnana Deepena, the light.
the light.
And once they've experienced all of that, guess what they're doing? They're giving Krishna exclusive devotion. So Krishna is quite clever with his words. Even the most sinners, even if the worst of all sinners, get on the boat. Because once you're on the boat will take care of you.
Yeah.
The boat of this knowledge will take care of it. You'll be influenced by it in such a wonderful way. You'll be transformed.
And also you mentioned to see the world how Krishna sees the world, and then there you mentioned Pradyumna or so how Krishna sees the world. Maybe I didn't get that.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes we try to figure out the world, don't we? But if we see the world as a combination of the interactions of the modes of nature, we'll be able to see it for what it really is. Why did this person say this? Why did this person do that? How could he be like this? Why is the world so like this? We try to figure it out. But Krishna's already figured it out. It's like this because there are 3 modes of nature. There's people in this world who don't bother thinking about themselves, and they don't bother thinking about anybody else. That's mode of ignorance. There's people in this world who only think about themselves and don't think about anybody else. That's mode of passion. And there's people who think about themselves and what's good for them, and they think about the welfare of others. That's mode of goodness. So immediately, using the model of the modes of nature, we can understand people in a very clear way. I don't have to get hung up about that. How does Krishna see that? Krishna sees it through, well, there's these modes of nature.
And especially with kids.
And that's what's at play.
Yes, sorry. And when like kids react very, they're very expressive in their feelings, right? So they are also under the modes, and it's easy to get angry. So it's if we can just, like you say, see them with Krishna's eyes, it's much easier.
Exactly. We will personalize things less. Personalize things very less. Is that end of your list?
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
I just wanted to add to this how Krishna sees the world is Krishna also doesn't he doesn't he probably leaves the self-will part to the living entities. And he doesn't control the will. We often try to control people. But Krishna doesn't quite control people.
Krishna doesn't control it. Krishna doesn't want to do like after speaking Bhagavad Gita, Krishna said to Arjuna, okay, I've said everything. I've answered all your questions. You now do what you want to do. So the supreme controller doesn't want to control you. So who are we? There's two psychologies that we battle with. The psychology to control and the psychology to enjoy. That's our battle. Whether it's with ourselves or whether it's with somebody else. How can I control this? And if we can't control something, we get agitated. We get frustrated. But here's the thing, you can't actually control everything. You can only control everything within this arena on the faculty of the body. I can control what I think. I can control my attitude. I can control what I say. I can control what I eat. I can control what I watch. I can control who I hang out with. I can control whether I pick up my bead bag or not. I can control all of those things. But I can't control any of those things in someone else. I can inspire them. I can be an example to them. But if I'm going to exercise my psychology of control or psychology of enjoyment, I'm going to be frustrated. Because only Krishna can control and Krishna can enjoy. Prabhupada writes in the introduction, move from the psychology of being a controller to being a cooperator.
I didn't get it, sorry.
In the introduction, Prabhupada writes, he speaks about this idea of control and enjoyment. And he speaks about the frustrations of the living being. So Prabhupada says, move from trying to be a controller and be a cooperator. We can only cooperate with the supreme will because we are not the supreme controller. We might think we are. We create our own little world and our own little universe. Okay, I'm going to control this. We can't even control getting old.
We can control how we feel about getting old.
We can control how we feel about getting old. We can't control getting old. We can't control the white hairs and the wrinkles. Can't control that. Of course, I could control painting them. So the psychology of control and the psychology of enjoyment binds us to this world because we can't fully enjoy it and we can't fully control it. But if we understand that that's where I'm getting caught up, hung up about, that's where I'm getting caught out, let me just cooperate. Let me cooperate with the situation that's happening in my life right now. What am I meant to learn from this? Can I do differently within this? How can I be more conscious of Krishna in this situation? Just that mindset changes everything. How's everyone feeling?
Great. Are we continuing the type of same topic tomorrow, or?
No, it's slightly different. It's just, I mean, I'm your servant, whatever you want me to do,
This is so nice. How do you feel? Everyone feels good?
Awesome.
Yeah.
It's very nice.
The Gita is very
It
nice.
gives a different perspective to
Yes.
how to, and it's really practical tips that how to bring it in real life. And thank you, Mataji, for giving a suggestion of putting a screensaver.
Yes.
So, and this is always, it's very important.
Yeah, always.
It's the way, I mean, as you mentioned, it's want, and then want to how to, that leads to that. And I think that's the key here.
Let me summarize this in 3 sentences. When we read and study Bhagavad Gita, do 3 things. Read it and ask yourself, what? What was this about? And that means just repeat the verse. Second, so what? What? This is what the verse. So what? What does this mean? What difference is it going to make? What does it reveal? What have I understood about this? And the third one, now what? Now what am I going to do with this? That's the practical action.
Yeah.
What am I going to do differently? How am I going to come closer? But it means slowing down. It's not, I've got to get through the Gita. Let's erase the phrase, I've read the Gita, and just become a student of the Gita for the rest of our life. Yes, we'll read Bhagavatam, Chaitanya Charitamrita, we'll read all of these books, and we'll continue to be a student, learning the treasure of Krishna and who he is in our relationship, and being nurtured by hearing about his relationships with devotees in so many loving ways. But let this be an ongoing journey with us. It will change the way we see everything. And that's what it's meant for.
Do you have any advice for studying the Bhagavatam?
We just bought Bhagavatam sets last Sunday.
Yeah. If you have any advice.
So here's one advice linked to, let's say you're starting chapter 1.
Yeah.
One thing I advise people is, and again for busy moms, instead of trying to read the verse and the purport, every time you start a new chapter, just read all the verses.
Okay. Just translation.
Just the translation. It gives you an overview of the direction of the chapter.
Yeah.
Just read all the verses. Then go back and read one verse purport. One verse purport. So when it comes to Bhagavatam has 18,000 verses. What I would do, just read all the translations of all 12 cantos.
Okay.
Get a feel of all the verses. First canto, just read all the translations.
Yeah, because it's easy to lose the
Track.
The track, yeah. I mean,
You lose track.
Yeah.
You can lose track.
Yeah.
Especially in
when I'm
Bhagavatam.
studying with-
So
Yeah.
whether it's Gita or Bhagavatam, when you start a chapter, just read all the verses first, and then go one by one. You come to chapter 2, read all the verses, and then come back.
Then it makes sense.
Then it begins to make sense.
Yeah. Yes.
You've got the overview. This is the direction of travel. This is I know what's coming. Now that I know what's coming, let me go step by step now, one verse at a time. But with Bhagavatam, first canto, all the English translations.
Yeah.
Second canto, all the English translations. You get a feel for it. Guys, and by getting a feel for it, you'll build an enthusiasm for it. And you'll say, I can't wait to go back and read the purports as well.
Yeah.
And even after you've read all the 18,000 verses across all 12 cantos, when you go back to the first canto and you start chapter 1, read all the verses first and then go one by one.
But then you just do that one chapter first.
Yes, just the one chapter, then verse and purport, verse and purport, verse and purport.
For the whole book. So
This is amazing
translation.
study technique.
Yeah.
So all translations and then verse and purport.
All the translations from all the cantos. Get a feel of it.
And then go back to chapter 1.
And then go back to canto 1,
Canto
chapter 1, read all the verses of chapter 1, and then go back, chapter 1, verse 1, purport. Verse 2, purport. And keep that journey.
Yeah.
So the translations for the whole of Bhagavatam, or do you mean
No, first number 1.
first number?
First,
Yes.
you see, when devotees buy Bhagavatam, they'll open just the cover of the first canto.
Oh, I see, please. Yeah. I've just
And you'll see
they started.
that only that first canto is open.
Yes.
Why do that to the Bhagavatam? The Bhagavatam has come to your house, open all 12 and read all 12. Read all the verses of all 12. And it will give you familiarity. This is what happens in Canto 1. These are the stories. Now I'm going to read Canto 2. Just read the translations. Now I'm going to read Canto 3. It's my favorite canto. Then I'm going to read 4. I'm going to read all of them. Now I've read all 18,000 verses. Now I'm going to dive deep. What does Prabhupada tell me? How does Prabhupada help us understand this Bhagavatam? Okay, I go back to Canto 1, Chapter 1, Verse 1. Chapter 1, Verse 2. Chapter 1, Verse 3.
Just the translations.
Okay.
Yes.
And then the purport.
And then after you read the translation of the first chapter, then you go back again to number 1 and then the purport.
Yes.
So actually you get to read the verse itself, translation 3 times.
Well, then you keep it going.
Yeah.
As much as you want to do. Is that okay?
So you read the purpose after you have finished the whole Bhagavatam.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so you only read the translations
Yes.
during the whole Bhagavatam.
Yes.
So when you have read the whole Bhagavatam, then you read the purpose.
Yes.
Okay.
But first, the first chapter. So you do all the translations, and then you go back to number 1 and you read only number 1's translations, and then from the beginning again, translation and purport.
Okay, I'll draw it out for you if you want to see it visually. But I mean that's not a rule. I'm not saying that's a rule. That's what you have to do. You can read it however you like. But I'm just saying, first of all, you get to open every canto. You get to see all the pictures in every canto. You become familiar with, what have I let myself into? I've got 18,000 verses to read. What have I let myself
How long
into?
time is it?
To read, like, for example, to read a chapter a day of the Gita, just the verses, it doesn't take more than 10 to 15 minutes. There's 2 chapters in the Gita which are over 70 verses. That maybe takes 15, 18 minutes if you're reading it thoughtfully. But the other chapters, 10, 12 minutes, just the English.
So what I had done was that actually
I'll give you another technique in a moment.
I had printed all the English only of Bhagavad Gita. So I have it like at a house and notebook.
Just the verses.
Just the verses.
Great.
Because it's there on Vedaves, but it is on different pages. So I just copy the text.
Yeah.
Make a Word file and then print. Nice.
And then what do you do with that printout?
I read.
Every day?
Not every day.
From today.
But almost every time I was earlier when I was asked to give a class, then I used to read only the verses first, and then pick a verse. Then sometimes you don't know what to talk about, and then some expression becomes things.
Yeah. Another technique for learning reading Gita, become connected to favorite verses. And just remind yourself of those favorite verses. One technique I started was I start this every 1st of January. And I finish on the 26th of December. How many days is that? 360. How many chapters? 18. What's the maths? 360 divided by 18 is 20. So here's the technique. On the 1st of January, I start with chapter 1. For 20 days, every day, I read all the translations. So chapter 1, day 1. Read all the translations of chapter 1. Day 2, read all the translations of chapter 1. Day 3, read all the translations of chapter 1. Consecutively.
Just one the whole time?
Just one, chapter 1. For 20 days. It will drive you mad. By the 10th day, you'll be thinking, why am I just, I know what's coming. Why am I doing this? But by the 20th day, you've read the same chapter for 20 days, all the verses. You will feel very different. Then, 21st of January, 20 days, chapter 2.
It's a longer one though.
It's a longer one. But then you don't have another longer one until the 18th. Then, chapter 3 for 20 days. Chapter 4 for 20 days. It will change your vocabulary. You'll begin to know where everything is.
What about the purports?
So, I then did a little math. If I'm going to read the purports in 20 days, how many purports do I need to read a day? And you can read all the purports in 20 days. Some chapters you read 2, some chapters you read 3 or 4. In chapter 18, you need to read a few more. But I tried that method out. It's just like Jay Maharaj reads Bhagavad Gita every single day. After he does his puja, he reads a chapter every single day. Now, when he quotes, he just quotes the Sanskrit. He knows exactly where the Sanskrit is. But I took the inspiration of reading every day, a chapter every day. And then I thought, well, why don't I just do it every year? Just make sure you read the whole Gita every year. So I started doing it a few years ago, and now I've shared it with other devotees to do it. 1st of January, chapter 1, 26th of December, you finish chapter 18, take a Christmas break, and off you go again on the 1st of January. Do it all over again.
In how many hours every day?
No.
Well, to read the translations of each chapter is no more than 10 minutes. The longer ones, maybe 15.
And then when you add the purports?
Then when you add the purports, 2 to 3 purports a day, another 10 minutes.
It's nothing compared to all the minutes we have.
It's really nothing. And you don't need to do it in one go.
You just delete Facebook app?
I don't have.
No. Or Instagram or something like that.
Yeah.
But if you think about how much time we get distracted by,
Yeah. That's
we feel so bad about that. But it's just about becoming more confident. What am I going to do with my time? And how can I invest my time properly in cultivating my relationship with Krishna's words here? And then you become familiar. where does Krishna say this? Where does Krishna say that? Where does, and Prabhupada wanted us to become so familiar with the Gita, we know exactly every question can be answered with a verse. Every question. And we become conversant.
Haribo.
Haribo.
Is that okay?
Yes.
Should we pause?
Yeah, we can stop the recording, maybe.
Thank you all so much.
Thank you.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Srimad Bhagavad Gita ki jai. Hare Krishna.
Yes.
Let us stop.